नमस्कार, आप सभी का बेहद स्वागत है CIET NCERT के लाइव फोन इन इंटरैक्टिव कार्यक्रम में। मैं हूं तन्वी खुराना और बताना चाहेंगे अब उपलब्ध है एक सुनहरा अवसर परीक्षा योद्धा बनने का। 29 जनवरी 2024 को सुबह ठीक 11 बजे भारत मंडपम प्रगति मैदान नई दिल्ली को आयोजित होगा आपका लोकप्रिय कार्यक्रम परीक्षा पे चर्चा, जिसमें माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी स्कूली छात्रों, उनके अभिभावकों और शिक्षकों से करेंगे सीधा संवाद। तो अवसर बिल्कुल मत गवाइएगा। इसी के साथ हम ये कार्यक्रम शुरू करते हैं और बताना चाहेंगे कि ये हमारा इंग्लिश का कार्यक्रम है फॉर ऑल द स्टूडेंट्स हु आर स्टडिंग इन क्लास 7. वी आर गोइंग टू रीड, वी आर गोइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस poem called Chivvy, and we are going to talk about its context. So RTC stands for reference to context. If you have any questions, any queries, you have read this poem and there's something that made you curious, that made you interested, and if you want to talk about the writer or anything at all regarding this particular poem, please reach out to us. You can simply call us on our number, that is 8800440559. And also you're watching us on eVidya channel number 7 at this moment, along with our YouTube channel, that is ncertofficial Official. In the live chat box, raise your questions, queries and share them with us. We have an expert in our studio and she'll be more than happy to answer all your doubts. If you want to connect with us through our email ID would be dth.class7@ciet.nic.in. So without further ado, let me please introduce you to our guest for today, and she is Miss Meenu Gupta. Ma'am, a very warm welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too as well, ma'am. Ma'am is a lecturer in English from Directorate of Education. So, as you all know right now that the poem is titled Chivvy. Let's understand what exactly does Chivvy means and what kind of a word is this, and also what is this poem all about. So, ma'am, would you like to answer that?
Sure. So, Chivvy is an old English word, not very popular nowadays, but Chivvy means to nag somebody. When you go on instructing somebody, not in a very pleasant way, then you are supposed to be chivvying them. And usually this word is used in context of adults or elders who have the habit of telling the children what to do always.
Okay.
Like parents do, like mothers especially, they tell the child, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. So the mothers is supposed to be chivvying.
So I think all the students, whenever they'll be reading this poem, they'll be telling their parents about it.
Not to chivvy.
Right. Would you like to read the poem to our children, ma'am?
So before we read, let's understand the context, like what the poem is about. Although we have already had a class on Chivvy, so it's a revision class. So before, let's have a small joke before we begin. So when Michael was 5 years old, his mother took him to a nearby school for admission. So the teacher asks, "What does your mother call you at home, child?" So the child answers, "Michael, don't." That is like she tells him don't so many times that he has attached that don't to his name itself. So this tells a lot about how the parents behave with the child, not in a bad way, but I would rather say we sometimes forget to realize that we are getting too much on the child. So beginning, Chivvy is to nag, to constantly urge someone to do something, often in an annoying way. So as the picture reflects, look at the face of the mother. She is going on telling the child what to do, what not to do, and look at the expression of the child. He is just listening, no reaction.
Yeah, sad.
Yes, he has no reaction. That it shows that it is a daily occurrence, something that happens very often. So before we begin, let me ask Tanvi.
Okay.
So do you like to be told what to do and what not to do? Always like.
No, ma'am. Since I became a teenager, I don't think I ever liked my parents to tell me, especially in an annoying manner, that do this, don't do that, clean your room, because I know that I'll be doing it right now or later, but when they tell, you feel bad.
Exactly. And do you think the parents have this tendency of doing it, like constantly telling you to do things?
So mostly they do it unintentionally, I guess. But yes,
Exactly.
they do that because they forget that even the children, feel bad.
Exactly. They have good intentions, they want to guide the child, but they forget that they are getting too much. So let's begin the poem.
Okay.
Grown ups say things like, speak up, don't talk with your mouth full, don't stare, don't point, don't pick up your nose. So just to revise, I'll just tell you the meaning in short sentences. So it's like the speaker is either a child or a poet who has gone through this whole process where an adult or an elder or a parent or a adult relative, it could be anybody, because he's saying grown ups. So he tells us that grown ups usually have this tendency to always instruct children, such as whether to speak up if they are not speaking up, and if they are quiet, they'll tell them to speak up, and if they are talking, they'll tell them to stop talking. If they are looking, they'll tell them don't stare. If they are pointing out to something, they'll tell them don't point out. And if they are picking their nose, they'll tell them, because it's a bad habit, please don't pick your nose. So usually the elders tell children not to do things which they don't like themselves, basically. Moving ahead, they may tell them to sit up, say please, less noise, shut the door behind you, don't drag your feet. Haven't you got a hanky? Take your hands out of your pocket. So till now, as you can understand, these are all the instructions that usually any elder may be telling a small child. So if the child is slouching or bending the shoulders, they'll tell them to sit straight. If they are requesting something, they'll tell them use please. If they are a little loud, they'll tell them not to make noise. If they are standing near the door, then they'll tell them, okay, now you shut the door. Or if they are dragging their feet, like children, if they are told to do something they don't like, they'll usually drag their feet. They'll walk slowly, slowly, slowly. But the parents will tell them, don't drag your feet. If they are wiping their nose, they'll tell them, use a hanky. Don't you have a hanky? Or if you are putting hands, when the adults themselves put their hands in the pockets, but they'll tell the child not to do so. So the child is very irritated. Like, what is this? They are constantly telling us what to do, what to do, not to do, what to do. So the child is a little confused in regarding what to do. So as we have read the poem, till now it's not the complete poem, we have just read the half, but these are 3 phrases that are there in the poem, like drag your feet. So you have to match the phrases with the pictures. So can you help me, Tanvi? Drag your feet, which one picture would be?
The second one.
Exactly, the second one, drag your feet. See the expression, that person does not want to walk, so he's dragging his feet. Elbows on the table.
That's the first picture.
On the table. So elbows on the table is when you are bending forward and your elbows touch the table, which would be the third picture. And for the elbows off the table, it would be the first picture. Exactly. So let us do a few multiple choice questions from the text.
Okay.
So who's the poet of the poem?
It's Michael Rawson.
Exactly, Michael Rawson, as Tanvi has also told you in the beginning. So for every poem, you should know the name of the poet, because when you answer questions in your examination, it's one of the most repeated question that comes. Next, who is giving these instructions? We have read a couple of instructions in the poem. So who's giving this instruction? The poet, a child, an adult, or any teacher?
It's an adult. A teacher could also be the right answer, but these instructions mostly a parent or an elder in the family would give. So an adult, I think, would be the right answer.
I'll tell you, although both C, an adult, and the teacher may be correct, but we are using an answer an adult because the poem says grown-ups. So that means adult.
Okay.
So we have to pay attention to what the poem is referring to. Although other answers may look as they are correct, but they may not be the right answer.
Okay.
So please pay attention to the poem clearly. So moving ahead to the third question. Mothers give instructions to their kids so that they become rude, they may learn good manners, they may become happy, or they may become intelligent.
It's B, they may learn good manners.
Exactly. So mothers or even other elders, they tend to instruct the child to help them learn good manners.
So here, ma'am, if I would like to ask you that they will be learning good manners, but is it for the kid himself or herself, or it's for the society that they want to show that I am a nice human being and I am a well-mannered person in reality?
Usually in terms of, if I am talking from the context of the adult or the parent, usually we want to show that we have done a good parenting and we want to show that our child is such a good mannered person. But in context of the child, they should learn good manners in terms of learning how to be a part of the society. Because, and eventually these good manners reflect good on their well-being also. Like picking the nose, it will end up transferring germs. So it is good for their health if they don't pick the nose. Or using a hanky. We have all learned during COVID that use of hanky is mandatory.
Right.
Because it will stop the transfer of germs. So these good manners are often good for our own well-being also. So moving ahead for the next question, the meaning of the word stare, because the elder tells the child not to stare. So what is the meaning of the word stare?
To look fixedly.
Usually we stare when we are looking at something very pointedly. That is, we don't blink, we go on looking at that thing or person, and most of the time it is taken as bad manners because you are not supposed to like look pointedly at a person.
So can we say that stare is a negative word?
Usually, in terms of person, if you are looking at a person, stare is a negative word. But if you are looking at a thing, then it shows your good concentration.
Okay.
Exactly. So moving ahead, let's continue with the poem. Pull your socks up, stand up straight, say thank you. Don't interrupt. No one thinks you are funny. Takes your elbows off the table. So, in this, the poet is giving more examples of do's and don'ts that grown-up ask the children to do, like pulling up their socks or standing straight. They'll ask them not to interfere. If like adults are talking, they are usually going to tell the child not to speak up. They will even tell them not to interrupt or like not to say jokes. Sometimes the adults are in a serious discussion when the child does not understand the gravity of the situation. So the child will try to tell their own instances. So they'll tell them, no, you are not funny. Sit properly. You're not supposed to slouch, because when you put your elbows on the table, your posture changes. So what the parent is or the adult is doing is trying to inculcate good manners. But sometimes too many instructions, because the children do not have that much concentration. They have a short attention span. So what happens is they'll tend to lose attention. And the last two lines, which are very, very important and totally different from the way the whole poem is written. Can't you make your own mind up about anything? So throughout the poem or poem, both the pronunciations are correct, don't bother. So throughout the poem, the adult is going on telling the child, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. And at the end they are saying, can't you decide anything on your own? Which is totally in contrast. And the child is totally confused. What am I supposed to do? Because when they try to do something, they'll be told, don't do it. If they don't do anything, they'll be told, why didn't you do it? So it's like, kare to kya kare and nahi kare to kya nahi kare kind.
Ma'am, here when we are talking about this particular child or children, what's the age that we are defining here?
So the poet doesn't refer to any particular age. However, as per our understanding, we are looking at the same age group as our students are, like somewhere from classes 5 to 8.
Okay.
Because that is the time when the child is a little more, has more understanding of things, what to do and what not to do. Because before that he is just a child who knows how to play. But when the child comes around class 5 or 6, then the parents start expecting them to behave in a certain manner, which is, what should I say, like good mannered. So that way it's usually the same age group as our own children who are studying these poems.
Okay.
So let's match a few more phrases with the picture given. Talk with your mouth full. So which picture do you think, Tanvi, it is?
That's the third picture.
Exactly. Munch, 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 chomp, chomp, chomp. So moving ahead, second one, point.
Point is fourth picture.
Yes, exactly. The picture is pointing a finger at somebody, which is considered impolite. So if you are referring to somebody in a society, you are not supposed to point fingers.
So if they won't point, how will they give the directions that look at somebody or in the straight direction?
You are supposed to use words. Don't point your finger. Please use your words, or even if you want to, then use the whole arm. Rather than using a finger, you are supposed to use the whole arm.
Okay.
Okay, third phrase, pick your nose.
Second picture.
Exactly, second picture. And to stare.
First picture.
And you can see the expression, anger, stare. So that is why it's considered rude.
Impolite.
So I hope these pictures have helped you understand a little about what this poem, a few words about the poem means. Moving ahead, let us answer these questions. The lines in this poem are addressed to the child, the adults, the mother, or the speaker himself.
The child.
Exactly. The speaker can also be a child. But there is no clarity in the poem that whether the speaker is a child or not. So we'll go by the word child. Second question, the children do not like to study. B, the way grown-ups instruct them. C, to behave nicely. Or D, to be neglected. What do you think?
It's B, the way grown-ups instruct them.
Usually the answer may any of these following, but as per the poem, the answer is the way grown-ups instruct them. Because RTC means that we have to refer to the poem, exactly what is written in the poem is the right answer. We don't have to try and use our common sense here. We will go whatever is written in the poem. Moving ahead, next one, according to the poem, we should not drag our chair, bag, feet or bed.
Feet.
Exactly, feet. And next question, what things do grown-ups say? Don't drag your feet, pull up your socks up, stand up straight, or all of the above?
All of the above and much more.
Much more, exactly. So Tanvi is on the right direction, that they say all of the above and much, much, much more. So there are a few words in the poem that we should know, especially because there is one question from the vocabulary when you attempt RTCs. Drag is to pull or pass slowly. To interrupt is to stop by breaking in or to obstruct. That is, if somebody is talking and you interrupt, you are stopping their flow of talk. If somebody is walking and you interrupt, you are stopping their flow of walk. So basically you are stopping somebody's work or action. Stare is to look fixedly, as we have already discussed this word before also. So these are three important words we should know in terms of vocabulary. So now, because we discussed questions, reference to context, there are few ways a question is framed. So given below are starting words or question tags by which usually the question starts. Either the question starts with what, when, where, who, whose, why, how, do or does.
So with this, ma'am, what I could think of is 5W and 1H.
Exactly. So we earlier used to call them 5 W's and 1 H. Now we don't use this vocabulary a lot.
Okay.
However, these are called WH questions. So how do we know what to answer?
Okay.
If a question is asked, what are we looking at when we are answering the question? So we have to pay attention to these question tags. Like what means we have to write the facts that are given in the poem or chapter. It is applicable to any type of text you have, chapter, play, drama, poem, anything. So if the question starts with what, like what's your name? So we are going to state a fact, like my name is Meenu, your name is Tanvi. So we give a fact or whatever is given, information is given in the text. Next, if a question starts with when, then we have to look for the time that is given in the poem. Now time could be exact time, like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, or like morning, evening, or winter, summers. So anything could be a time in terms of the poem or the text you have been given. So this is what we are looking at.
Would you like to state an example?
Like for example, when do you go to school? So I go to the school in the morning. I go to the school at 8 o'clock. I go to school when it is not very hot. It could be any context, but when we have a time frame when you use that question. Next question, if the question starts with where, so we have to state a place. Now again, like place could be an exact place or place could be a reference place. Like for example, I am sitting in Delhi. So this is a place. Or I am in a big city. It is also a place. So the students can answer, like I can ask a student, where do you live? So the student can tell me, I live in Safdarjung Enclave. The student can tell me, I live in Delhi. The student can tell me, I live in a big city. So
or I live in a country.
Yes, I live in a country also. So I think country would be a bigger, but they can say I live in India.
Right.
That makes it more specific. So that is what we are looking at in terms of place. Right. Next, if the question says who are you?
Or who is that friend of yours?
Yes. So we can state a name. We have to answer in context of a person. We can state a name. Meenu, Tanvi, Ram, Sham, Meena, anybody. Or we can refer to in terms of boy, girl, or some relation that you have with that person. Like Tanvi said, friend, parent, elders. So any reference relation. So in terms of who, if the question states who, then we are looking for the information that tells us about any person, right? If the question asks whose, then we are talking about something, some belonging, some possession that belongs to, like this pen belongs to me, that pen belongs to you, that is your bag.
So the question would be, whose pen is this?
Yes, whose bag is it?
Whose idea is this?
Yes, so that idea belongs to me, the idea belongs to you, or the pen belongs to you. So it tells about a thing that has or is possessed by somebody else.
Belongs to a person.
A person, exactly. Then if the question starts with why, then you have to give reason for that. And please remember, in context of a poem, sometimes the answer may not be direct. Like in a chapter, the answer is usually very clear. But in terms of a poem, please pay attention to what has happened before and what is happening after that.
So, ma'am, when it comes to the answer of why, can there be multiple answers to that?
There can be multiple answers depending on the text. Like for example, if I say ki why does the adult Chivvy so much, right? So there could be multiple answers. One answer could be they want to give good manners to the child. Second could be might be angry. Third, probably there are a lot of people around and the child is disturbing them. They are doing something very important and the child is disturbing them. So there could be multiple answers to a question why, but usually you stick to the answer that is given in the poem.
Okay.
And if the question starts with question tag how, then you have to write about that process. Like how do you make tea? Like you add water, then you add tea leaves, then you add sugar, milk, and then you boil it. So this tells about the process.
So can we say that the answer of how cannot be in one liner? It has to be longer than that.
Usually it is a bit longer, and how is not used in a question that is one marker.
Okay.
Because in one marker you are usually expected to write one line only. And if the question starts with do or do not, so usually you are expected to answer in yes or no.
Okay.
So I hope you can just take a screenshot of this slide also, and please keep on referring to it when you are trying to answer questions on your own, so that you don't make a mistake and you are able to get full marks. Moving ahead, we'll just try a few more questions from the poem. So next question, when is a grown up likely to say this? So when is time?
Okay.
When is time? So when does a poet say, a parent say, don't talk with your mouth full?
When the kid is eating?
Exactly. So there is a time, probably it's a lunch, dinner or a breakfast time when the child is eating. So we have to refer to a time.
Ma'am, as we don't have much time left, would you like to give this as homework to our children?
So these are a few questions. Answers I also have added. So you can just look at it and just try and practice what we have done in terms of question tags. So I hope you are able to understand the poem and attempt the questions that are based on this poem.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a wonderful poem, and the way you explained each and every word and each and every context, I'm sure the children, each and every viewer loved it, not just the child but the parents as well. So thank you so much once again for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the children, and I'm sure you liked this poem, so why don't you read this poem along with your parents, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy and learn something out of it. So here we are ending this English class for all the children who are studying in class 7, but stay with us because another program is also for all of you, and that is going to be a social science class where we are going to study market around us, and that would be the first part of this topic. So stay with us, don't go anywhere, and before we leave, of course, I have an announcement to make. That is that CIET NCERT is happy to announce the All India Children's Educational E-Content Competition for this year, that is 23-24. If you are a teacher, teacher educator, student or independent educational e-content creator, we invite you to send in your best e-content for the competition. For more details and the registration form, please visit the activity section of our website, that's ciet.ncert.gov.in, or scan the QR code simply given on your screens. The last date for sending your entries is 30th of January, which is like 5 days away. So quickly make the process a little quicker and send in your entries as soon as you can. With this information, thank you so much. I am Tanvi Khurana and I'll take a leave of you. Keep on watching eVidya channels and have a great day ahead. Namaskar.